before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell to be part of the conversation. Alright, welcome back. I'm Audie from Audie Marsh Productions. I'm in lovely Florida. It is currently 39 degrees. Now this video tonight is going to be on the proper way on shucking oysters, what to look for when you're shucking oysters, some of the equipment that I use. I say equipment, but maybe tools such as what hot sauce I use, what oyster knife, what do I put on it. Just a couple little tips and tricks on what to look for when you are eating oysters. Now let's get started into this, and here we go. Alright, here's a quick overview of some of the stuff that I'll be using. Shout out to McCoys out of Marianna, Florida for supplying these lovely oysters. I believe they're going for $65 a bag at 60 pounds. That is the cheapest I have seen oysters in a long time. Last year I think I paid tax total and washed out the door was like $98 last year. This year they're only $65, which is surprising due to all the COVID. But as you can see, this is going to be my workspace on when I show you how to shuck and what to look for when you do shuck them. So let's get started. Alright, here we go. From this angle, I'm showing you kind of some of the products of what I use when I shuck oysters. I have several knives here. This is the Carolina oyster knife. This is a decent knife. It offers basically like a protection plate, so when you shuck and you slip, you're not gashing your fingers on the oyster. That's one of the reasons why I like the Carolina knife. However, I don't like how wide and angled the blade is. That's the only reason. I think if they were to use a longer, skinnier blade and still offer this, I would definitely go for that. The other one is going to be the Dexter Russell. Dexter Russell is a decent knife. This is old tried and true. As you can see, it's probably shucked many of oysters. Nothing wrong with Dexter Russell. However, I found my new knife. This here is the Morty, the Knife Man product, and they're out of, I believe, South Florida. I picked this up at McCoys for like 10 bucks, and I tell you what, this is probably the best oyster knife I've ever used. If you're experienced and you're an expert like me, I typically don't shatter my knuckles when it comes to shucking. The blade gives it enough, it's long enough that way if you do, it kind of gives you that little play to where you'll back the knife back out before you hit your knuckles and fingers on the oyster itself. But this is my go-to. It's Morty the Knife Man out of Central Florida. I'll leave the link below as well for this. I've got my premium Nabisco original saltine crackers. Can't go wrong with those. Shout out to Crystals out of Louisiana. This is not any paid sponsored video. However, if Crystals, if you're watching this, this is the only way you can eat oysters is with the Crystals hot sauce. Nothing is better than Crystals hot sauce. So shout out to Crystals. Thank you for providing an awesome product and make my oysters yummy. And of course I got my ice. My oysters is in here. The type of glove that I use is basically like a rubber. Being that it's 39 degrees out, this is the best glove to use. It's all rubber. It is thick in case the knife can penetrate it, but like I said, I'm an expert, and you won't see me doing that on this video. Anyway, being that it's cold, this is the best one because it keeps the water out of everything. And then it offers these ripples here. These ripples here, I will show you here in a little bit that you'll wipe your mud off that way. But let's get started. Enough of me talking. I want to show you how to properly shuck and what to look for, and we'll go from there. Alright, here we are at this angle. I'm fixing to show you the proper way of shucking an oyster, how to do it, what to look for, some tips and tricks that you can use. But anyway, let's get into it. Let me dig out a perfect oyster out of here, and I'll show you how to shuck it. Alright, here we go. What you want to do when shucking an oyster, obviously, is you want to look for the very end where it has, as you can see, it doesn't completely join. However, you also want to look to see if the edge is joined. This is the most important part when it comes to an oyster. It's not a hollow sound. If it's hollow, don't even worry about it. Go ahead and toss it. Go to the next oyster. This one here is solid. It does not sound hollow. Typically the oysters will be open at the edge, and the brine will usually be dried once you shuck it, or the brine will be missing. This one's going to be a solid oyster just by looking at it, from it being flat at the top and the curve. Anyway, what you want to do is you want to take your knife. This is how I hold it. I'm left-handed. I take it like this. I'm pretty experienced with it, therefore I don't need that protective end of it like the Carolina oyster knife is. This one here is solid. I love using these type of knives. So what you want to do is that you want to place your oyster knife in between the two on the ends. Now when you take it in, you don't want to like take it and shove it in and push. The object is it's all in the wrist. Take it and just pop it like that, and it's open. As you can see, juices are already flowing out, so that tells me that it's not a dry oyster and that the brine is perfect. So like I said before, on the glove, wipe your mud. Sometimes they'll be super muddy. You don't want to push mud back into the oyster. Just wipe the oyster, mud away. Take it. You want to go up at an angle when you push your blade through, and then out like so. So you go up at an angle. So what you're doing is you're taking the oyster out from the top, and you're coming across, and you should be able to just flip it like so. This is a beautiful oyster, as you can see. It's very clean. It's not dry. There's no parasites or bugs or crabs. It's not even muddy. This is probably one of the perfect oysters for this video. I'm not even gonna lie to you. So what you want to do here is you take your knife. You want to go up under the oyster like so. The only part of the brine that's going to be attached to the oyster is where you see this eye here. This is what you want to cut away from the actual oyster. And you take it like this, go underneath, and you want to cut it like that, and cut everything away to make it easier for when you go to put your oyster. Typically you can put your knife down, slide the oyster on the cracker. What I like doing is I like poking the oyster. This is the easiest way for me, and I've done it for years. I take it like this. I take my non-glove hand with the cracker, lay it on there, grab the hot sauce like so. Crystal's hot sauce out of Louisiana. Shout out to Crystal's. Anyway, put as much hot sauce as you want it, and you're ready to go. Perfect. So like I said before, what you want to look for in oysters is make sure it's not dry. Make sure it's not sticking to the oyster. If it's dry, go ahead and toss the oyster. If the oyster has a different kind of smell, like a rotten smell, toss the oyster. If you shuck an oyster and it's not dry, but there's not enough juice in it, or a typical, like a different type of slightly different smell to it, if you second guess yourself, toss the oyster. That's my rule of thumb. Just go ahead and toss it and go to the next one. Also, the rule of thumb for oysters is the only good time to eat oysters with the months of R. So basically your winter months, I would not eat oysters in April in Florida because it gets hot in April. Typically like November, I'd say October. It gets kind of cold as well. October, November, December, January, February. You're pushing it in March. That's my 2 cents. You're pushing it. Typically don't eat oysters in the summer. They tend to have more bacteria in it. I don't know the reason exactly, but that's what I've always been taught, and what I've always done is you eat oysters in the winter. That's my 2 cents. So shout out to McCoy out of Marianna, McCoys. Like I said before, these are $65. This is the cheapest oysters I've seen in years. Shout out to Crystals. I want to give a big shout out to this here. I will leave the link below so you can pick up your Morty the Knife Man. They're based out of Florida as well. This is probably the best freaking knives you can get. And they bottom out, or they round the ends of it so you can sit up like that, grab it. It does have it's not a sharp, but you can tell it does have a sharp end to cut the oyster away from or cut the brine off the shell. But that's all I have. I figured I'd do a quick video on what to watch for. You know, you don't want your dry oysters, you don't want the smelly ones. And if you have to second guess yourself, go ahead and just toss that oyster. But that's all I have for tonight. Thank you for joining me. I've been very blessed to finish in the year. This is December 27th in the year with a nice, good, solid batch of oysters. And they're cheap. $65 is super cheap. But that's all I have. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment below what you think. And let me hear your oyster experiences. But I'm Audie the box auditor. Even though this wasn't an unboxing, it was an unshucking. Until next time, I'm out.